Welcome to another episode of The Brand Called You, a podcast and podcast show that brings you leadership lessons, knowledge, experience, and wisdom from hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. I am your host, Ashutosh Garg, and today I'm delighted to welcome a very, very accomplished woman from Canada, a fellow YPO member, Kathy Sarafian. Kathy, welcome to the show.
Thanks for having me.
Kathy is an executive coach and a mental fitness expert. She's been triple certified as a coach, and she's a contributing author for a book titled Peak Performance Mindset Tools for the Entrepreneur. And as I mentioned in my introduction, she's also a fellow member of the YPO. So, Kathy, let's start our conversation with the first question, which is that you're a human capital optimizer. Help me understand this with an example or an anecdote.
Yes, Ashutosh, it's an interesting concept because we all as leaders know that people are our greatest asset. We all know that that is the competitive advantage. If you have a high-performing team and a culture that brings out the best in your team, it's truly the sustainable path to success. And what I find is that a lot of leaders know this, but in terms of truly committing to it and bringing it to life on a daily basis for their teams is a different matter. So there's a number of areas that I actually work with my clients to be able to get to this point of optimizing the human capital. And one of the first things is creating a meaningful and purposeful workplace environment, the big why. Why are we coming to work? And the example I can give you is when I was a young leader parachuted into a role of president. I remember that when I was interviewing my team, and I was in the healthcare area with Allergan, and then it became part of the Abbott business. We were in the business of cataract and laser vision correction. And when I first interviewed all of my sales and marketing team, and I asked them, what do you do? They were saying, we sell phacoemulsification machines. We are in the medical device business. And when you were asking them later on, after we did our homework, they would answer you very differently. They would say that we're in the business of allowing grandparents to see the smile of their children.
Wow.
And that these are the finesses, the little subtle changes that makes a huge impact. And the other thing that I find is very, very important is to bring the culture of being positive to the workplace. And I don't mean fake positive, because everybody needs to be very authentic and real. What I am referring to is to see your work and peers and your career as a leader with the lens of gratitude, with the lens of appreciation, with the lens of what is there. I love it when leaders go out of their way to find their employees doing something right, and then they would acknowledge and appreciate that. And I will give you a little story that resonated with me. I had a phenomenal CFO when I was with AMO, and he was a very proud Italian going for a family reunion to Italy with his dad. And the day before he left, I gave an envelope to him to give to his dad to read at one of the dinners. And I wrote a note to his father around what an amazing son he has given to the community, because he is not only an amazing leader, he was a wonderful father and a person.
Wow.
And it doesn't have to cost a lot to be able to have that leadership, to elevate your team. So those are the few things that you can do to be able to really have a team that their mind as well as their heart is captured.
Amazing. And I love both your stories. They're so interesting. So, Kathy, now let's talk a little bit about mental fitness. Let me start by asking you, what is mental fitness, and why is it so critical to be mentally fit these days?
Yeah, I mean, this is a topic that I have a lot of passion around, and especially, as you said, during our times. So to simplify, because this is mental fitness, resides in a variety of different science-based, it resides in neuroscience, it's grounded in positive psychology, cognitive behavior, and peak performance. But to simplify, our minds can be our best friends, but also they can be our worst enemies. And we have a tendency, our mind has a tendency to sabotage our potential for performance as well as happiness. And when you are stressed out, that is your saboteur not allowing you to experience and reach your full potential. So mental fitness is actually a 6-week program that allows people to go step by step, developing a skill where you can have self-command on your mind. Because as human beings, we're addicted to thinking. We cannot not think. And taking a break from that thinking allows you to create a space and be a lot more proactive and responsive as opposed to reactive. And we all know that the last 2 years, Ashutosh, we all have had lots of challenges.
Correct.
No matter where you are in your life circumstance, it has been challenging years. And I say that if you don't make time for mental fitness, you may have to make time for mental illness. And that is why it is so much more important. It allows you to access the parts of your brain that gives you calm clarity, calm resolve, creativity, curiosity. And these are all the superpowers that we have. But unfortunately, because of stress and the negativity in our head and not being aware of it, we cannot access and we don't realize our full potential.
Amazing. And the other thing I was wondering that, why have you decided to combine mental fitness with your coaching?
Yeah, I love that question. So the reason is because coaching is a dialogue where you help people experience powerful insights and breakthroughs. It is a way where you can understand your blind spots to be able to move forward. Unfortunately, the problem with that is that insights, as well as any learnings that you go through, fizzles away. After 3 months to 6 months, you go back to your normal baseline. The reason why I like to combine it is because it is a rewiring and a much more deeper shifts that we are creating through the mental fitness. And we're tying it with a daily habit. So once it becomes part of your DNA and it is part of your getting up, brushing your teeth, having your coffee, and that's your mindset, then you can benefit from it for the rest of your life. It's long lasting.
And do you have any interesting example or anecdote where you've combined these two with super results?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, personally, I'm the kind of coach that I have to walk the talk. And that is why I chose coaching as a profession, because I'm a lifelong learner. And I thought, if I am a coach, I will always be challenged to learn and grow and walk the talk. So it is easy to tell people what should be done. It is not easy when you do it yourself. So I have amazing results myself personally that I realized, but I will give you an example of a client, a C-suite client that came to me around a couple of years ago. And she was stuck. She was feeling overwhelmed, stressed, and the self-doubt had become debilitating in terms of her role. And she was wise enough to know that she needed support. So we worked together, and it is amazing how, as a result of coaching combined with the mental fitness, she got to a place of practicing, taking breaks 3 or 4 times during the day where she would be able to pause and be mindful of what's going on and choose her responses as opposed to autopiloting. And she was able to get to a space where she was a lot more calm, to think clearly. And as a result of our conversations, she gained a lot more clarity on how she needed to show up and what kind of mindset she needed to take to her team and to work every day.
How amazing. And, a follow-on question from what you just spoke about. What are some of the simple steps people can take to move towards mental fitness?
Yeah, there are actually very simple steps, but a lot of simple steps like exercising every day, Ashutosh, it's not easy. So that is where a lot of people cannot do it. But if somebody wants to start, I would highly encourage them to recognize that slowing down and pausing would increase their effectiveness and productivity. We are living in a world where we're tied into our cell phone and iPhone. We're bombarded by messages. We're constantly in a mode of autopiloting. So I would highly suggest that the simple steps they can take is just to be able to take 2 minutes, maybe 3-4 times in a day, where they take a break, a mental break, and they just get present to their breathing. And that would allow them to quiet down what I call our survival brain that causes a lot of negative emotions, and be able to be present to their senses and access the right brain where they can be calm, they can be having that clarity to move forward. And that in and of itself would create a shift in their energy.
Fascinating. So one more question on mental fitness, and then we'll move to talking about your coaching work that you're doing. My question is, how does mental fitness help with mood and anxiety disorders?
Yeah, so the best way I would be able to describe this is that where our mood swings or negative emotions, stress and anxiety comes from, it is an automatic function of being human. We automatically use our left brain, which I call the survival brain, and we are predisposed to negativity. And what I mean by that is that because of survival, you have to always be very aware of threats and danger and what could go wrong. And that is our automatic disposition. And if you're not aware of that way of thinking, which is only serving us during a life-threatening episode, then we are in that mood of anxiety and stress at all times. And we need to train ourselves to be able to recognize that this is not life-threatening. Let me calm down, ease my nerves to be able to operate more productively. And that is the summary of a lot of science and details behind how mental fitness would allow you to address negative emotions and shift to a positive area of your inner superpowers, I call it, where you have calm, empathy, curiosity to be able to function better.
Amazing. So, Kathy, now let's move to your avatar as a coach. You are a self-leadership and a mindfulness coach, and you've chosen this positioning for yourself. Let me start by asking you, what made you become a coach after such an amazing corporate career?
Yeah, so what I noticed is that my last 2 roles where I was president of AMO as well as CEO of Drive Medical, one of the dynamics of the culture I created was that we didn't have supervisors and bosses, we had coaches. So everybody had a role of coaching. And what I mean by that is that every conversation was an opportunity to elevate, inspire, and lift the people that we were responsible for. And I just realized that when I was able to change the success trajectory of a person that was on my team, it was deeply fulfilling. And it lined up with my mission statement in life to be able to help people realize their awesomeness, help people to realize their greatness, and change their success trajectory. As a result of that, it became an easy kind of chapter when we sold our business when I was with Drive Medical to a private equity firm that I did a hard pivot into coaching. And I'm really blessed and grateful that I am now living my passion and purpose.
Oh, fantastic. So my next question to you is that, when I was starting my life, as a professional manager in British American Tobacco and then other companies. And that was 4 decades ago. Coaching or mentoring was done either by a family elder or by a senior colleague who took a liking for you.
Yes.
What has changed in the last so many years that coaching is now become a profession and people are willing to pay for advice?
Yeah, very true. So you touch on a couple of things that I wanted to clarify. One is that mentoring is very different to coaching.
Absolutely.
And everybody has a different mindset of what mentoring and coaching is. The way I have clarified it in a simple way in my head is that with mentoring, the dialogue is about the mentor having the answers because of their depth of knowledge, experience, and the status that they have achieved. The answers resides with them. However, when you come into the profession of coaching, especially as it's recognized by the International Coaching Federation that I have a certification of PCC with, the answers of a coaching dialogue resides with the coachee. So when I'm talking to my clients, I am fully clear that they have all the right answers. They are creative, resourceful, and powerful to come up with the answers. And I am a medium through questioning and asking them to go deeper to help them get to that place. Now, the answer around why coaching has become prevalent is because studies after studies show the return on coaching is phenomenal. And when you can help a leader go to the next level of their career, of their leadership, the impact in the organization is so high. There are studies that show there's 10 times the return on investment all the way to 27 times. And Deloitte has one of these studies. So I think a lot of smart leaders recognize that it's very lonely at the top. And you and I know, having been part of YPO for more than 15 years, it is very lonely at the top. And to be able to have that sounding board, somebody that in safe confidence you would be able to share your feelings and process it, is truly I want to say a luxury, but now with COVID, it's a necessity.
Absolutely. Well said. Well said. My next question to you is, at what stage of one's career in the corporate world should one actively ask for or look for a coach?
I believe that coaching is necessary at any stage. I've even coached a lot of international MBA students after talks that they had interest. So it's tough for me to say when is the right time. But I would comment on the fact that I generally would encourage leaders to support their A players with coaching, because then they can take them to the next level. I would say that a very good time for coaching is for when you have succession planning and you need to get your team to a certain level so that you would be able to do what you have to do as a CEO to work on the business and strategy and M&As as opposed to the details of the business. There's also a very specific point in time that everybody needs coaching, which is transitions in life. If you have a promotion, if you're adding, I just had a wonderful young doctor that joined a new organization, and we worked together for her 30, 60, 90-day plan as she established her brand and was able to take charge of the onboarding. So any transition in life, I think, requires some level of coaching that assists you to set the next chapter on the right path.
Very interesting. So I'm going to ask you one more question on coaching, and then I want to come to the book where you have you're a contributing author. My next question is that today's organizations are now beginning to see millennials and Gen Z leaders getting into positions of authority and leadership. My question to you is, how do organizations prepare themselves from a coaching perspective to get these young leaders to be able to, deliver much, much better performance?
Yeah, I love this question. And a lot of the content that we've talked so far becomes also relevant to answering this question.
Correct.
When you look at millennials and the new generation, Ashutosh, what do they want? When you look at that cohort of people, they want meaning and purpose. They want balanced life. They demand flexibility. What they want is not bosses. They want coaches because they want to grow and develop, but they don't want somebody to tell them all the time what to do. So when you take these comments in mind, it touches on a lot of things that I've talked about, where you need to, as a leader, develop a culture where people come to work and there is that big why. They know why they're coming to work. And the way you treat them is different. I just find a lot of old school leaders use their authority to deal with these young generations, and nobody is ready to learn. They're not primed for learning when they're being told what to do. I like the saying that everybody wants to learn, but nobody wants to be told what to do, right?
Yes.
So what you want to do is have that mindset of being a coach, being curious, making sure that they have a voice, because they are the generation that will demand to have a voice. And when it becomes a co-creation versus I'm the boss, let me tell you what you need to do, and it becomes a fixed mindset instead of a flexible growth type of mindset, I think it creates a lot of conflict. And I think you cannot retain this group of people.
Fascinating. So now let me move to your book, Peak Performance Mindset Tools for the Entrepreneur. Tell me a little bit about the book and the section or the chapter that you've written.
Yeah, so I never thought of myself as an author, but when I got approached by a wonderful gentleman by the name of Eric Severson, he has been a professor at Stanford, and he is bringing a lot of wonderful individuals globally together to put this book together. And I challenged myself in terms of my chapter to really go into my personal story, because everybody loves to hear a story and it makes it a lot more genuine. So I talk about the revolution that I went through. I'm Persian, and in Iran, 1979, there was a revolution. And I just share about the importance of investing in yourself, because that is something nobody in no circumstance can take away from you. And I talk about how I try to turn every situation and event in life into a gift and an opportunity. When we go through tough times, we don't realize it, but they are the times that our characters are built and we have the highest level of growth. Nobody benefits when it's party time and comfortable time and you're not coming out of your comfort zone. So my chapter is dedicated to life lessons along the way that I can share with my audience, and also some of the simple steps around how you would be able to become mentally fit. And something that my coaching is based on is mastering your mind to be able to master your game. And that is what my chapter is about.
Amazing. And you said this book is coming out in May?
Yes, it's going to get published in May. And for the people that are interested, I would love to connect with them on LinkedIn, let them know. We're going to give them updates around the book, and happy to share the book with anyone that's interested around peak performance and learning some tools around mindset.
And maybe you'd also want to talk a little bit about people connecting with you through their website, through your website.
Yes. So there's two mediums. One is my website, which is very actually simple. So www.kathysarafian.com. So it's my name. And then through my website, they can also connect with me on LinkedIn. I would love to connect with anyone interested in what I say and it has resonated with them on LinkedIn. Twice a week, I come out with coaching insights that I post on my LinkedIn as a contribution. I would love to hear their thoughts and comments on it, and see how we would be able to co-create a beautiful world together.
Wonderful, wonderful. Kathy, on that note, I just want to say thank you so much for speaking to me. Thank you for talking to me about human capital optimization that you're doing for so many different companies and individuals. Thank you for talking to me about mental fitness and its importance in the corporate world, and how you're making a difference by working with so many different leaders. And thank you for talking to me about your journey as a coach, as well as about your incredible new book that's coming out in May. I will certainly look out for it and get my copy. Thank you and good luck.
You will receive a free gift from me in terms of the book, and I'm grateful for the opportunity. Thank you so much. I thoroughly enjoyed this, and keep up the amazing work that you're doing. It's an honor to be a YPOer with you, and I wish you the best.
Thank you so much, Kathy. Thank you for listening to the Brand Called You videocast and podcast, a platform that brings you knowledge, experience, and wisdom of hundreds of successful individuals from around the world. Do visit our website www.tbcy.in to watch and listen to the stories of many more individuals. You can also follow us on YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. Just search for the Brand Called You.